So the first thing let's do is bring in the reference images for our background image and for some supporting images over here on the side of our Blender interface. So let's go ahead and get rid of everything here in our 3D view, the camera, the cube, and the point light. I'll just hit A twice to select everything and hit X and delete. We don't need all of that in the scene. The next thing let's do is bring in a background image here that will help us as we model each piece of the gun. So I'll press the N key to open up the Properties panel here, and right down here under Background Images, I'll click Add Image, and let's go ahead and click Open. And I have some reference images here in the Reference Images folder. You'll be able to find these in the project files, which you can download from the main page of this course. Let me click this icon right here to see the images a little better. I think this is the view I want to begin with. I think this is going to be the main view as I begin modeling. So I'll just click Open. And now here we are in the perspective view, but we can't see anything. The reason why that is we can only see background images in an orthographic view. So if I press the 5 key on the numpad and then maybe the 3 key, now we can see it here in the orthographic view. If I press the 1 key, we can also see it. And if I press the 7 key for the top view, we can also see it here. That's because we have right down here all views selected. So all of our camera views that we can use an orthographic view in is going to be displaying our background image. I don't want that. What I really want is maybe something from the right view here. I think this is a good place to put it. So I'll come over here to All Views and I'll click Right, and that will ensure that this image will only show up in the right view. If I select, say, the front view now, we can't see it, and if I select the top view, we can't see it either. So I'll go back to the right view. Ultimately, we are going to have to make this object real-world size, but we don't really have to do that now. If I were to model this real-world size, I might run up against some problems in terms of the screen clipping here in the interface. Let's scroll back up and let me show you what I mean. Here in the Properties panel under Clip, you can see we have a start and end clipping distance. If I create a cube, I'll come over here to the Create tab and create a cube. This cube is 2 Blender units wide. If we come over here to the Scene panel, we can take a look at our unit presets. If we switch it to meters, our cube is now 2 meters. If we switched it to feet, our cube would now be 2 feet wide. So we're actually changing the size of the cube as we change the units here. So I'm going to change it back to meters because that's the default unit of measure in Unity. So that's what I'll go ahead and use here. Now we can see here that the gun is quite a bit larger than it should be. It's way more than 2 meters long. But in terms of the clipping, let me show you what I mean here. So with the clip, it's now from 10 centimeters to 1 kilometer. If I zoomed way in, I'm going to tumble around, and I'll hit the 5 key to go back to perspective view. If I zoom way in, you can see how this corner begins to clip. If I reduce that clipping size from 10 centimeters maybe down to 5 centimeters, now the clipping isn't quite so pronounced. So the clipping is the area in which you can see an object, see the scene, and beyond that, it clips it or doesn't display it in the viewport. So if I put this back to 10 centimeters here, now that clipping would be greater. And if I took it up to, say, 30 centimeters, it would begin to cut an even bigger chunk out of the cube. So the problem with modeling very small when we're working on something like this gun, there are a lot of very small details, and we might run up against clipping errors as we're doing this. So what I like to do is model big And then once it's done, then work on scaling the entire thing down to real-world size. We'll go and find the dimensions of the gun and we'll scale it down to the appropriate size. So let me just delete this cube. Okay, so now that we have our background image in, let's also bring in a couple of images over here on the side so we have a couple of different views to work from. So I'll just grab this little tab right here on the upper right-hand corner of the Properties window, click and drag that, and open up a new window. And then I'll click here and change this to a UV image editor. Now I'll click Open, and let's go find another reference image that we think would be helpful. I think this would probably be good. Let's bring this in. Yeah, that's a good view to work with. And then maybe let's open up another one. Let's grab here and drag down, change this to a UV image editor again, and open up a new one here. Maybe this one here, the top view, that kind of gives us a sense of how wide the gun is going to need to be. Yeah, let's take a look at that one too. All right, so now that we have our reference images brought into our interface, in the next video we can begin blocking out the basic forms of the machine gun.